Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss a few useful tips to consider when we are talking with someone who has a hearing loss. My name is Prajakta, and if you're new to this channel, I'm a senior audiologist with over a decade's experience in the field of audiology, which is why I'm going to help you understand a few things we can do to help individuals with hearing loss feel more engaged whilst having a conversation with you. Let's begin. I would like to just briefly start by giving us a bit of the demographic of hearing loss so that we know why it is important to recognize the need of individuals with who have hearing loss. So hearing loss is the second largest disability in the world, and because it's not something that's evident when you look at the person, it is an invisible disability. So see, you don't look at somebody and they don't look deaf, so it's very easy to forget that they have some additional needs as well. It is estimated that there are around 11 million people with hearing loss just across the UK. That's nearly 1 in 6 of us, and that over 900,000 people amongst these 11 million have severe to profound hearing loss. What someone with hearing loss really needs is consideration and courtesy and feeling involved in the conversation, not feeling lost, not feeling the need to ask for frequent repetitions. And that's why I thought it is important for me to help you understand this, because even without the added issue of hearing loss, conversations require a lot of focus, energy, and patience. For people with hearing loss, what happens is when there is a noisy environment or friends who speak too quickly, it can make communication extra challenging. A few small changes can help everyone stay in the conversation. Successful communication is a two-way street, and really both parties involved need to be fully invested. So as a speaker, you need to make sure that the information that you want to give is being conveyed in a manner that is easy for the listener to understand. Although hearing aids can improve a person's hearing, it doesn't completely solve the challenge of communicating well. When you are conversing with someone who has hearing loss, we have to keep in mind that what is just a simple conversation for you may be a really tiring effort for your companion or for the listener, because they're not only focusing to understand what is being said, but they are working against the noise in the background, working with their hearing loss to follow that conversation. A person with hearing loss has to make an active effort to understand. I mean, hearing aids do help, don't get me wrong, but simply turning up the volume won't make distorted sounds any clearer. Okay, so hearing loss can inherently cause sounds to feel a bit distorted. The hearing aid tries its best, but it is still just a supportive device. There are some of the communication strategies that we are going to discuss today will help someone who has hearing loss. Okay, and most of these are practical suggestions that we can really employ in our everyday communication. It is also, I just wanted to highlight that all of these strategies that I'm going to talk about today are very suitable for like mild to maybe moderately severe hearing loss. If somebody has severe to profound hearing loss, they will have additional needs. So let's discuss one strategy at a time. So let's move on. So the first one that I would say is that before we start to talk with the person, it's important to reduce the level of background noise in the room. So simple things like turning your television volume off or lowering the volume on it. If the radio is playing, lower that volume. Or if you're in the kitchen, you're cooking, make sure you're not using any noisy appliances at the same time that you're talking to the person. Also, it is very easy for us to, um, leave the tap or the faucet running. I mean, although this is like a background noise, the low pitched the frequency composition of that sound can actually sometimes be picked up by the hearing aid, and it amplifies it. So don't leave your taps and faucets running, because what is just a simple noise for you in the background, it is actually something that can be fairly intrusive for a person with hearing loss who is using hearing aids. If you are unable to reduce the background noise, then it is always preferable to move to a quieter area to continue your conversation. The second technique that we can use is to ensure that you have the person's attention before you speak. So we can either do this by saying their name or just gently touching or tapping them on their shoulder. So this tells them that you are ready to have a conversation with them, or you are conveying some information, and then they can focus their attention towards you. Now, it's very, very important that we talk face to face, and this is not only with a person who has hearing loss, but generally as well. So, for a person who has normal hearing, if you are sitting in a room and somebody else talks to you from another room, or maybe you are in the lounge and somebody's talking to you from the kitchen, it is quite a complex environment, and there are lots of hurdles to overcome in order to hear. If a person has hearing loss, these barriers only become more significant. It is very, very important that we speak at eye level with the person who has hearing loss, and you should not be more than a few feet away. Make sure that your face is clearly visible. Don't be chewing gum, talking behind a book or a newspaper, or cover your mouth while you're having the conversation. And it is understandable in recent times, because there have been many situations where we've had to wear a mask in order to protect ourselves from infections around us. If you are in a situation where you have to wear a mask, there are several clear masks that are available, or visors available that you can have, which protect you but still enable the your facial gestures and your lip movements to be visible to the person with hearing loss. So this is another option that you have to bear in mind, okay? Because people with hearing loss, they do rely quite heavily on looking at the person. There's so much that we can convey non-verbally, and this is only the importance of these non-verbal cues is only enhanced for a person who is struggling to hear you clearly. The other thing we can do to help someone hear better is to speak at a typical conversational level. Many times I have seen people raising their voices, speaking to people with hearing loss in a very loud volume. Now that is only going to distort your voice further and make it harder for the person to understand you. Once an individual has a hearing aid, the volume isn't the issue anymore. So because the hearing aid's amplifying the incoming sound, if you raise your voice, it's only going to make it louder and distort the sound. So it's important to maintain a normal conversational loudness level, and if necessary, say if the environment is noisy, or your face, or the view of if your face is obscured, you can modestly increase the volume, or try and speak clearly, not slowly, speak naturally, but just slightly increase the volume only if needed. It is also very important to speak clearly but naturally. So there's a lot of, nowadays when we talk to people, English has become, it's got a lot of slang as well. So rather than using phrases like, oh, it's so cool in it, or what do you think this is? It's better if you say, this is really nice, isn't it? Or you have to be a bit more clear when we speak, enunciate the words out properly, focus on pronunciation. You don't necessarily have to speak very, very slowly. You can speak normally, but use clear language. So rather than saying, using slang words, it's best to use proper, precise, clear English. So that would help them follow your conversations much more easily. I hope that makes sense. Another useful consideration is to alert our listeners to changes in topics of conversation, and you should always be a bit more cautious and show extra consideration when you're in a group environment. So, crosstalk, that is when two people are having a conversation in a group and another topic begins and we suddenly jump onto the next topic. This is one of the most difficult situations for someone with hearing loss. I know it is difficult to do this all the time because speech is naturally dynamic, okay? But it is best to try and structure events so that only one person is talking at a time. So maybe if somebody interrupts in between to change the topic, we can politely ask them to just probably let us finish this topic and then move on to the other one. At meetings, it's always useful to display an agenda, things that are going to be spoken about, so that the person with hearing loss is aware of what's going to come next. Okay. And sometimes we can also print out the agenda and give handouts to everybody who is attending the meeting. And as every time as the meeting progresses, it's best to start with the topic again. So, okay, right now we are just going to discuss on this topic and then start, so it's easy for everybody to follow and keep track of where the conversation is at the moment. I cannot emphasize on this point enough. Okay, so most of our conversation happens through nonverbal cues. It is so important to use your facial expressions, gestures, body language when you're trying to convey information. It's not only through what is spoken that we understand the message, but our emotions, the way we are feeling, to show the other person how involved and engaged we are in the conversation. All of these things provide very, very useful cues to people with hearing loss. So yes, be more animated in your conversations. Give your wholehearted attention to the person so that they feel listened to. They feel like you are genuinely interested and speaking with them, whilst you're having the conversation. This is going to help them follow what you're saying with much more ease. The other thing is, if you're having a conversation with someone and you feel like, the listener has either gone really, really quiet, then it might be a signal that they've misheard something, or they're starting to feel a bit lost in the conversation. So watch your listener's face for signs that comprehension is becoming a struggle for them. If you feel like your listener's suddenly gone very quiet or they're looking a bit confused, it's best to rephrase our statements, okay, and find a proper tactful way of rephrasing what you want to rephrase, the message you're trying to get across, without making the other person feel uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So rather than repeating something in a louder voice, repeating the same phrase again and again with a louder voice, try using different words. Try using simpler sentences than long, complex, or compound sentences. Break the message down into smaller chunks. All of this helps them to process what's being said in a more comfortable manner. So all of these conversational strategies that we discussed before were more to do with how we speak and how we can improvise on it. But sometimes it's also very important to think about the situation or the environment you're in, your physical surroundings, because they also contribute a lot in helping an individual with hearing loss focus on the conversation rather than working on lowering the background noise. So what that means is that if you make the environment around you conducive for the person to actually focus on the conversation alone, then they're going to have better outcomes. So some environments are much more easier for communication for people who are hearing impaired, and there are here are some of the things that we can do to make sure that the environments, if not perfect, that it's good for listening. Okay, the first one would be to make sure that the room has enough lighting. So people with hearing loss often rely on lip and speech reading, facial expressions, and your body language in gestures to supplement how much they can hear, and that helps them immensely to improve communication. Make sure that your face is well lit. Don't sit with the light behind you, because that actually would cast a shadow ahead on your face and make it harder to read your lips and watch your facial cues. Pick a place that has minimum background noise. Now, although our brain and our ears are able to filter out background noise in most situations, people with hearing loss often have a difficult time overhearing above or hearing over excessive background noise. Keep in mind that small rooms with no soft furnishings or no carpets or curtains tend to have more distortion and poor acoustics. So consider a room that is, that has carpets or doesn't have high arched ceilings. All of these things are going to improve acoustics and help the person or help us make the environment for them better. Also, just to supplement the issue with the lighting, it's always good to make it easy to see everyone's faces. So if you are going to be in like a group setting, maybe if it's a restaurant or it's a wedding or it's just a meeting, make sure that you place the person with hearing loss on a round table so they can see everyone and they have access to everyone's faces so they can look at the person who is talking. A very good example about thinking about the environment would be, say, if you're planning a dinner or pick a restaurant that which has nice ambient lighting, which has ample lighting and doesn't play a lot of loud background music and has decent acoustics. Um, Choose a restaurant that maybe you've been to before, where you know that, okay, they don't play lots of loud music in the background, the acoustics is really nice, and make sure that you choose a table in a suitable location. So the table should be positioned away from like the kitchen doors or the play areas, or perhaps if they have music and they have speakers, away from the speakers and away from like the bar area, the bar entrance, because many people would be coming and going. It can be a bit more louder than the rest of the restaurant. And a general rule of thumb would be to make sure that the table is positioned next to the wall and the person with hearing loss is sitting with their back facing the wall, so that we are minimizing noises coming from behind and from the sides. A corner table or a table next to the wall would eliminate some of those noises. And another good tactic would be to select an off time. So rather than having dinner at around 7 p.m. or on a weekend, on a Friday or Saturday, because we know that those are often the most busiest times, opt for like either a late lunch or an early dinner, somewhere between those hours when the restaurants are most likely less busy, and this would also help you to have a healthy conversation without a lot of background noise interfering in it. Obviously, these are just some things you can consider, nothing that you have to follow. We can also supplement hearing aids with remote microphones or accessories that would help boost your voice above the background if you're going in one of these busy areas or timings. During like a group gathering at home, frequently, maybe if you're having birthdays or just a meal or a get together, and you would like to have a conversation with a friend or a family member who has hearing loss, then it's best to invite them into a quieter corner of the room, or leave the room and go in a different area where there's less background noise. And perhaps if you have the TV on, or any other sources of noise, best to make them softer as well when you're having this conversation. So you would be surprised but as to how much difference a good and conducive environment makes to improving communication for a person with hearing loss. Another thing that we can change is to think about how the furniture is arranged in either your lounge or office or any other rooms where you're going to have these conversations. You know, whether it would help if you face the chairs in such a way that, you know, everybody gets to see each other's faces. That would also probably help in giving those extra visual cues, and either to have your sofa against a wall to sort of lower the background noise coming from behind, or have soft furnishings or a rug, or, you know, a carpet and nice curtains that would help make the room acoustics a bit more better. So you know, and another important thing that I can say is some people have hearing loss only in one ear, so it's best to position yourself towards their better hearing side, so it's easier for them to follow what you're saying and to best aid the communication. Okay, so basically all of those things are changes that we can make, you know, or things that we can consider when we are going to have a conversation with somebody who has hearing loss. I'm very sure each one of us knows either a friend, has a family member, or a colleague, or you know people within the community who are struggling with their hearing, and doing these simple things is not only going to make them feel cared for and make them feel included in the conversation, it would make their life so much more better. We really need to work towards making this world a more inclusive place for everybody with hearing loss. And I think it is each one of us responsibility, each one of us is responsible for making a person with hearing loss feel more involved and included into the community. So these are really simple things to do, and I hope you have learned something new through this video today, and that you will implement these things when you talk to people who have hearing loss. And finally, if you are a person with hearing loss, it is important to be assertive and open. There is absolutely no need to be embarrassed about having a hearing impairment. If we tell somebody at the start of the conversation that I have a hearing loss, and you know it would help, or that if you rely on lip reading up to a certain extent, if you convey this to your conversational partner from the start, it will help healthy communication right from the beginning. And if you do miss out on something being said, please don't panic. Please keep calm. Getting flustered is only going to make it harder to follow conversations. It is best to acknowledge our loss and just say, I didn't quite catch that. Or maybe if you've only partially heard the statement, you can say, did you say that we want to go for dinner? Or did you ask if I like football? And just repeat what you've said, and then the other person can confirm it. So really, it's just helping each other out, being more aware of the additional needs of a person with hearing loss, and supporting each other to have a healthy conversation. I hope you found this video informative, and I'll see you again in my next one. Take care, everyone.